Nick, we're going to talk about a lot of horror movies today, a whole lot of horror movies. We're going to talk about A Bay of Blood, Twitch of the Death Nerve. We're going to talk about Last House on the Left Part 2. We're going to talk about Bloodbath, Carnage.
Oh, can we talk about Ecology of Crime?
Oh, Ecology of Crime. We're definitely going to talk Ecology of Crime. We're also going to talk Chain Reaction. And wait, what does AKA mean? Oh, these are all the same movie.
Same movie.
Join us for these movies. All right, welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from Goethe Reviews.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, and thanks for watching. Thanks for finding us. And you can follow the show on Twitter. You can follow us on Instagram as well. Check out the options for Patreon, and you can tell us what to do. Today, we're going to talk about a film that's kind of a footnote for horror movies, and we'll talk about where it came from and what happened afterwards. We're going to talk about Bay of Blood. That's what we're going to use.
Yeah, we're going to call it A Bay of Blood. You can call it something else.
I've seen it as called Bay of Blood, not A Bay of Blood.
See, there's more titles.
More titles.
Anyway, we're going to talk about A Bay of Blood today.
We'll go with that.
So, a wealthy heiress is killed by her husband, searching for her fortune. This sets forth a murder spree unlike any seen before, as family and friends of the couple arrive at the bay in search of their portion of the inheritance. This bloody display is further complicated by a group of teenagers who have come to the bay for a weekend of debauchery, as this roaring rampage of death begins.
So there's three words that you put in your horror movie in the 70s, and it is either Satan, the devil, demons, or blood. I mean, it's just everything. And of course, this is another one of them. Blood is in the title.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say Bay, but no, it's fair.
In the 70s, we went overboard with blood, Satan. He had a great decade for movies. Mm-hmm. Bay of Blood is another footnote to what we get in the 80s. And before that, I would say even before how we got there from Bay of Blood is Psycho, of course.
Yep.
And then Hammerstein's Curse of Frankenstein, which John Carpenter said that's the start of it, because of when it happens to the Frankenstein monster. And I think it was Christopher Lee playing the monster, but he gets stabbed in the eye and the blood comes out, and John Carpenter goes, that was the spark, that was the crack in the dike that sparked all the blood in every movie. So from Psycho, from Curse of Frankenstein, now we're going to get almost bathed in blood.
I think there's more than that even though, Nick, and
Sure.
I think that's this film is commonly interpreted as one of, I guess, the holy trifecta of slasher movies, if you will. We have, like you said, Psycho, we got this film, and then Peeping Tom. And all those three combined is get that conversation of what's the first actual slasher movie, really? You know, like which one of these actually started the craze? Which one's officially a slasher? Because you have all those items together, you know, congealing for a couple of years, and then you finally get Black Christmas, which evolves into Halloween, which evolves into every horror movie ever made during 1981.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that, like, is this a slasher movie? Kind of, but it's a lot of slashers, and there's a lot of slashing, but I don't know if there's one slasher.
But it's really quiet for a slasher movie, because I'm so acclimated to 80s, like you get just bombarded, like boom boom, all your senses get stimulated right away. But it starts really quiet. All you get is like shots of the bay.
Well, that's
and even the murder of the woman is pretty quiet too.
Yeah, there's not a lot of score to the film, and most of it that's there is calm, relaxing. It's kind of like they're using the bay and the lake, you know, motif of being therapeutic, like calming and relaxed. And then someone brings out a weapon and cuts your head off. So that's kind of what's at play here. The film feels, when I was watching with my wife, she goes, okay, so this is just bloody R-rated Knives Out. And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah.
A little bit like that, right, yes. I got it.
We're using it.
So it's a lot more calm, a lot more quiet than I really thought.
Mm-hmm. Even the death scenes are not that particularly strong. I mean, they're not strong, but like not loud. There's one stabbing part where the person's writhing around a lot more, but it's all pretty calm throughout.
But this is where this started. This is the train in the station, and what we're going to go from the 80s, and from 71 to what we got almost with the 89 is pretty much the last year for slashers. We go back and visit it, but 89 is, that was pretty much.
Well, and we also had, again, going back to Christopher Lee, if you can make Christopher Lee revolted by your film to the point where he left the theater mid-screening, you might have done your job. Now, whether or not the film's any good is a different question.
Right. Well, I always talk this with writers and creatives, and we use it for my art classes. Are you going to appease the audience and give them something they enjoy? Or are you going to shock? There's really no other barometer that you want to maintain. Mario Bava is definitely going to work with shock the hell out of you. Mm-hmm. This is not a young person. This guy was making movies in the 40s before he came to do this.
Yeah, and it's more just a realization that you can get away with more now than you were able to before. We forget that 11 years prior, Psycho was criticized for having a woman in a bra and for having a flushing toilet.
A working toilet, right.
So, lots changed in 11 years, folks. Now we're murdering 13 different bodies in this movie.
And one gets, I just love the scene of him getting in the of course, holds his wall. It's the classic cliche, because that's been used now for how many...
Oh, I was thinking about the couple in bed, too, and I was like,
that's Friday the
13th part, too.
Yeah,
like, I was just starting to call out bits and pieces of, like, homage.
Yeah, so
and that may be what the film has, is that it's a mess of a movie that inspired and created the modern slasher, I think maybe more so than the previous two films, because it has that gorgeous blood effect.
Right, so a lot of the stuff that we've seen from the 80s, more where I grew up to, a lot of the stuff, the content of the head chopping off, the blood going out, people, the spear gets stuck on the wall, and then he holds it, and all of a sudden collapse. Yeah, I just love those things that we all appreciate. But now we know where it all came from. Yep. This is actually not really regarded as a slasher. This is like Galero.
Oh, Giallo, yeah. It's kind of got that element to it. I mean, at least more so than what most people consider classic Giallo, because I have been corrected in my assumption that Suspiria was. It's not. Giallo is much more is much more based in slasher. There's usually a killer with a very interesting weapon. Often people sometimes wearing gloves, and you've got the color scheme, and you've got a lot. There's a lot more to it than that. But that I could see your take on the film.
That's where slasher starts, from those books, and then it gets into the movies in Italian. So yeah, you have to go gaudy. Always go gaudy with your slasher horror. But I do have another trope that we have is, of course, naked woman. You got to have a naked woman, and she's got to be in the water. Either taking a shower, like we've seen The Burning, take a shower, or even though you're at the lake, you have to have a shower. Why don't you just jump in the water?
Neither of us are criticizing this at all.
But the body actually is an effective use of filmmaking. Mario Bava is an accomplished filmmaker. He really, there is some talent to it.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And there was that kind of internal group of filmmakers at the time, Argento, Bava, and then you've also got even Lamberto Bava, the relative, who had done Demons and Demons too. I always got to get a shot in there.
Got to have Demons on the titles.
But you've got those elements at play there, like these guys were kind of like trading around. I think even one of the screenwriters for this film was stolen from Argento because of a falling out, and then kind of like cycled back in. So like there's been that kind of like interplay between actors, between filmmakers, that really kind of helped to steamroll the modern horror film.
Right, yeah. Even so, like I said, it's not a young person's film like a lot of the young directors from the 80s. This guy's been making movies since the 40s, and then he does this in 1971. And he knew what was going to happen when he made this movie. It's going to shock everybody, and then it's going to be to talk about. But the contents that shock everybody is pretty mild, like we'd already discussed. But I would say you have to have a key. You have to have a whole card of like who's in this movie again, because there's so many people in this movie,
and that's its biggest problem. Is that I don't really know if I knew any characters in this movie. I don't know if there was a character in this movie, because I don't know that anybody was defined enough to make them discussable. I had to look up all the character names as I was reading it. It reminded me of when my brother read Jurassic Park for the first time. He would write down on the back of his bookmark the character names, so he could keep tabs on where all the characters were. When I finally got his copy of Jurassic Park and read it, I had this nice little like layout of who the characters were. That would have been helpful here, because we don't know any of the characters, and we're kind of struggling the whole time to figure out who's who.
Now, I'm a writer too, and I write stories with a lot of characters in it, but I had to watch this twice and go, oh, that, okay, now I know the reveal. But still, when you watch it, like, that the person?
Yeah. Well, and as each time we get a reveal of who our killer or killers are, as we get that reveal, I was kind of like taking back, well, who's, okay, yeah, like, but who's this person in relation to this person? Like, that was another thing too, is it would have been nice, had it been more like a Knives Out, where we got maybe a scene where we got all of these characters well defined,
right? Like
in order for us to figure out who they are afterwards. And that's kind of the biggest problem in the movie, is that everything stylistically was a lot of fun. I loved Carlo Rambaldi's makeup effects work, but I just got so lost in all the characters maneuvering around each other.
Yep.
that I really wish I liked any of them enough to care when they died.
No, and there's another trope that we always used in the 80s, which is teenagers go into places they're not supposed to, and there's a desolate camp with cabin.
Well, what's funny about that is you
like,
don't know that.
all right, we're going to pad our numbers, of course, right?
Yeah. It's funny because the film starts without them, and pretty much could operate completely without them.
We're going to mansion first.
It reminded me of Jason Goes to Hell, where they had to pad their murders, like you mentioned, and so they have the only scene of anyone at Crystal Lake in Jason Goes to Hell was added because they just needed to have 3 more bodies in the movie. And it's like, that's exactly what this is. You could excise the 4 teenagers and the film would be no different. But it's almost a funny thing to look back on because you're like, it's the teenagers, all right, like it's fodder. So
Right, yeah. And of course it's going to shock you at the end. It's not the ending that I ever thought it would happen.
Yeah.
Like, you got to be kidding me. Nobody really, well, everybody really talks about it because they want you to have the same reaction to that ending. But right, Mario Bava is working to shock you and to bring something new and really just get a reaction from you.
Mm-hmm. And Bava too had previously shot some work and worked alongside Roberto Rossellini, famous director, who actually supposedly did some uncredited film work on this movie.
I wouldn't be surprised because I mean Roberto's like, hey, I've got a reputation. I can't really tell you.
And a good chunk of the stuff he shot ended up in the final product of the film. I'm assuming it's probably it's probably the character stuff. Maybe, I don't know.
But it's a really good. I mean, because not only is he the director, but he's also working the camera for this.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's really, really effective. There's a lot of good talent. There's really for what the budget is and how ridiculous it is. It's really crafted really well.
I would say if the film could have tackled its screenplay better, which I always get shocked when the film's got
That's a little bit of a
screenwriters on it, and you still have no real story. Because again, it kind of reminded me of Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. That it's a great idea. It's such a very simple but workable idea and concept that just needed someone to push it across the line to reverence.
Yeah, because there's really no encapsulated dialogue. There's nothing really that encapsulates my ear or whatever was spoken. Mm-hmm. It's just, we're there to execute you, and we're going to try to do it as stylized and maintain that is important as well.
Yeah.
Like, we get the witch lady comes in there, and I'm like, well, she's going to be dead.
Yeah, and again, that was also part of it, too, as they introduced all these characters at the beginning. My mind was chasing, trying to figure out, wait, have we met this one yet? And I was like, oh, no, okay, so I'm going to try and write down crazy witch gypsy thing.
Right,
I was writing down these characters on the back of what would be a bookmark almost, trying to just keep track of them all. I would almost like it, in some movies they kind of, they forcefully feel the need to like pause and give you the character name and like stats. Give me that cut.
Something it needs to be hold on to. There's so many people, like I said, like you spend more time with who's this person with relationship to the other people. Mm-hmm. Especially if something's heavily subtitled, it's hard to.
Yeah,
so like I said, I watched this twice, and it's still, at the end. Oh, that's the killers are killers. That's it.
Yeah. But what's funny is that I have noticed through my discussions with people upon seeing this film, I was doing a lot of text conversations yesterday, and a lot of people came back and said, I didn't love it the first time I watched it, but I love it now because I keep going back to it. And I think that might be the film's saving grace, is that it's got this quality of a midnight horror movie. You get some friends together. Maybe what I like to do with slashers or films with a lot of dead bodies is usually give people like all right, pick who's alive at the end of the movie. I love doing that. Because I think that's a level of fun that you can have with the movie, is who's going to be the survivor at the end of the movie. And a well-made slasher film makes you question that a lot. Right. So like, have them watch 5 minutes of the movie and you pause and say, who's alive at the end? And I think that could be a saving grace of this movie, is that it has a wonderful rewatchability and a wonderful turn off your mind, get some popcorn and pizza rolls, and check it out.
And also, it has that needle where it can go really ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And then you're not going to get turned off by it. But it dances around that. This is silly, even though the body floating in the water, and some that could have been really ridiculous, and it kind of is really ridiculous. It's almost comedic. So the comedy is still there. It's just you're laughing at things that's kind of like, what the hell?
Yeah, and that's often what Joe Dante has said about the film. Joe Dante wrote this wonderful piece, if you can get your hands on it.
Hey, speaking of a person who loves filming in water.
Yeah,
Joe Dante.
But Dante wrote about like the stylish blend of horror and humor, the way that the gore works to kind of mess with your head a little bit, and he felt a heavy emphasis on creating the slasher. I think he kind of posited too that this film is more of that first creator of the slasher film.
Which is really funny because you watch this movie, I think you then go watch Piranhas, and you can see that. All right, yeah,
I could and I will.
Joe Dante loves water in his movies. Yes,
absolutely, and I think it's Bava's favorite film of his. I think he calls it his most personal film, which take with that as you will. So I mean, there's a lot of
you're exercising your dark side with this. Get on movies. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think what it comes down to for me is that this movie is a mess of a movie. I'm not going to get
it's a hot mess of a movie, but
it's a very big
fun.
hot mess. I enjoyed watching it.
It's got
a good 84-minute runtime. Yeah. When you got a movie that's messy like this, have it quick and have it really be running. And I do think this movie runs. There is an average death like every 7 minutes in this movie. That's a pretty good for a gorehound kind of movie.
But you want to know where the grandfather of The Burning and Friday the 13th Part 2 and everything, this is it. This is the movie. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think this movie, were it not to exist in all its messy glory, we would not maybe have a Black Christmas. We might not have a Halloween or a Friday the 13th. Not in the way that we love them today. And so I think, if for nothing else, this is the Wicker Man's sacrifice to corn. We stabbed this film to death so that we can have the modern slasher film. And I did enjoy watching it. I can't wait to watch it again, hopefully with some people that hadn't seen it before, because I want to just every few minutes go watch their expression.
That's the reaction I had to the ending. You gotta be kidding me. What?
Yeah.
What?
Especially when everyone says oh, that big FU ending. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I'm watching you jerks! So.
Right, yeah, it's right, yeah. Yeah, take that ending, M. Night Shyamalan. That's an end. That's a twist that you're like, what?
The twist.
Right,
yeah. So I think for that reason alone, because it doesn't take itself seriously enough, I think I could enjoy it more, and I think I do kind of want to watch it again. Although I'll say this, I'm very mixed about the finished product. I think technically worked and stylistically it
doesn't have much of a story to it.
But man, that story kind of hurt my feelings. Because you know me, I'm always looking for story. I'm always looking for where the story is. So.
But you start the story with a murder in a mansion, and after that it's the middle part.
A pretty cool looking murder.
It does look, yeah.
I think this is a movie, we brought it up before, I think this is a movie that would be perfect for a remake. Yeah. Because you could take what works about the movie and you could bump it up a couple notches, and the crazier you get with it, it's not going to be seen as a misstep. And then you could also fix some of those story points, because the story is in there. It's just lost in a little bit of minutia where it's obvious they don't care about the story as much. And I think you could do a Bay of Blood.
But let's talk about when the 80s slasher movies, the monster establishes an environment and stays there. Like Friday the 13th, he stays at the camp. Relatively, he stays at the camp. Michael Myers stays in that town.
Yeah.
Freddy stays in your dreams, and this is the start. It stays in the bay, right?
If for nothing else, there's a stomping ground element to this, where the killer is, this is my place, and I'm going to stick here, and I'm going to make it mine.
So it's a little bit like real estate.
Yeah.
When you write your horror movies, even with slashers, it's the real estate also.
Hey, Lex Luthor said there's one thing that's more important than gold, and that's real estate. Maybe he was talking about the modern slasher. I don't know. Right. We don't know. These aren't things we can figure out.
Yeah. So, and real estate's always kind of evil.
Yeah.
You die well.
They'll fight to the tooth and nail to get it.
Have you seen Bay of Blood, or Economy of Crime, or
Twist to the Death?
That's my favorite.
That's I think my favorite one, because I also remember seeing a trailer for it years ago, and I didn't realize until I finished watching this movie that I'd seen Twitch of the Death Nerve now. So hey, I just knocked 10 movies off my watch list, guys. Especially Last House on the Left Part 2. That's another one too. I gotta try and watch these two in relation to each other to see if they actually have any connection whatsoever.
That's another one. That's an evolutionary step to what we got.
Exactly. Yeah. So. It's a fitting sequel title.
Then. It definitely is.
But yeah, definitely. Have you seen the film? What's your favorite title?
You got it if you love slasher movies.
Do you have a favorite Bava film? And maybe your favorite Bava film is a Lamberto Bava film. Demons. Let us know in the comment section down below. We're always looking to get more of that information. And hey, we love seeing our comments out there, so you're always going to get more love from us if you tell us your thoughts on the film as well while you're down there. As Nick pointed out, don't forget to subscribe, share the video, check out that Patreon. You could join Patreons like our friend Brian Eggert, who has joined the video and been able to pick some of the different movies we talk about on the show. Yep. Because hey, we could pick any single movie and we could probably talk for any amount of time.
And you still got a wide selection to choose from.
Yeah, I think we haven't scratched the full surface yet. There's still directors that I'm shocked we haven't discussed yet. 100 episodes in that we haven't gotten to these directors yet. But that's maybe because it's there for you. So go check it out, the Patreon, and decide for yourself what we want to talk about next. And until next time, you guys can find all my film reviews, all 1,000 of them, on GoFilmReviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, a podcast anywhere you can find, and you can probably check us out on the Bay.